Here is, again, evaluating limits, this time part 3. And you can see that this example has a fraction and a root. Good times. Okay, so our plan of attack is to plug in the number 3. And if I plug in the number 3, I'm going to get the square root of 3 minus 2. And then 3 minus 3. Okay, so the square root of 3 minus 2 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So I'm going to get 1 minus 1 is 0 over 0. So again, as in the last video, what's going on is that this has a hole. So whatever this graph looks like, it has a hole at x is 3. So the y value will exist, like it will be approaching from both sides. We have to find it. Okay. In the last video, we had a trinomial up top that we could factor. Yeah, when you have roots, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by the conjugate. So let me remind you of what the conjugate looks like. What the conjugate looks like is it'll be exactly like this, but this sign in between the two terms will change to its opposite. So here, that conjugate is going to be the square root of x minus 2 plus 1 and the square root of x minus 2 plus 1. Okay, I know it's going to be a bit of a mess, but it'll be okay. All right, very, very, very important. When you are doing these problems with conjugates, where the conjugates are meeting up, so on the top here, we're going to FOIL. But on the bottom, we aren't going to multiply it out. We're actually going to leave it in factored form. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to FOIL out the terms up here, but down on the bottom, I'm going to leave it as x minus 3, the square root of x minus 2 plus 1. Trust me on this. I've been doing calculus for a very long time. Okay, so what happens when you FOIL this out is that I get a square root of x minus 2 times the square root of x minus 2. They match. I've got 2 of them. So the square root will pop off, and I will have an x minus 2. Okay. I'm going to have a square root times a positive 1. And then I'm going to have a negative 1 times the square root. So those middle terms are going to cancel out. And then last but not least, I'm going to have a minus 1 plus 1. So that would be a minus 1. Okay, that's the whole magic of multiplying by a conjugate, is that the roots pop off and that all the terms with the root disappear, at least where you were multiplying conjugates, which here's the top. Now notice what happens when I take x minus 2 minus 1. That's x minus 3, right? All right, so let's write it. X minus 2 minus 1 is x minus 3. Okay. A few minutes ago, I said don't multiply at the bottom. Can you see why now? Because that guy's got a target on its back. I want that to cancel out. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to cancel out that x minus 3 with that x minus 3. So I still have to evaluate the limit as x approaches 3, but now all I have is a 1 on top and then this guy on the bottom. Okay, let's plug it in. When I plug in 3 now, I'm going to get the square root of 3 minus 2 is the square root of 1. So that would just be 1. So I'm going to get 1 plus 1, that's 2. So this whole thing, let's see where I can write it. I'll write it right here. Is a half. Okay, why the heck did that work? It's just the magic of calculus. So what happened is that our original bad spot in the denominator, we basically want to cancel it out. So the way that we cancel it out is that we have to creatively multiply by the conjugate, FOIL it out, it will appear here, it will now cancel with the original factor, and then this is what I'll be left with. Practice, practice, practice. It'll be okay. Good luck as you are attempting your homework.